What if these aren't myths? What if the government's releasing UFO files and the Bible's most cryptic prophecy are describing the exact same entities? In May 2026, reports surfaced of something along the Euphrates River, unexplained phenomena that prophetic channels linked immediately to fallen angels. The footage spread faster than anyone could verify it. But here's what made even skeptics pause. Revelation 9, verse 14, names this exact river as the place where 4 angels are bound, waiting to be released to kill a third of mankind. UFOs, artificial intelligence, and the Euphrates prophecy are now converging at the same moment in history. The question is no longer whether you believe in prophecy. It's whether that river just confirmed it. On May 30th, 2026, a video posted to Facebook by Gabe Poirot sparked immediate alarm, showing a faint, pulsing light near a bend in the Euphrates River, accompanied by low-frequency, metallic groans. Within 48 hours, the clip exploded on YouTube, racking up over 200,000 views, followed by viral Instagram reels from accounts like Ken Baranier 8 on June 1st. Niche prophetic channels declared the ancient chains were breaking. Yet, a massive gap exists between viral panic and verified reality. A search of global news archives reveals a stark silence. No major wire service, neither Reuters, the Associated Press, nor the BBC, reported any anomalous lights or supernatural sounds along the river. Instead, official reports from late May 2026 document a highly volatile but entirely physical event, flash flooding triggered by sudden, massive dam releases upstream. A United Nations relief report on May 28th and Reuters coverage on May 30th confirm that the rising waters were the result of controlled reservoir management, not demonic activity. But does a natural explanation completely erase the anomaly? While geologists point to rising currents and sediment flushes, researchers tracking the original uploads noted that the strange audio and thermal signatures were recorded at the exact coordinates of the ancient riverbed. Are we looking at a simple hydrological coincidence, or did a routine water release inadvertently disturb something ancient buried beneath the silt? If the physical world is beginning to mirror apocalyptic scripture so precisely, what happens when the next seal is broken? The ancient text does not treat the Euphrates as a random geographic marker. Writing on the isolated island of Patmos nearly 2,000 years ago, the exiled John recorded a precise, chilling command in the book of Revelation, chapter 9, verses 14 and 15. Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels who had been kept ready for this very hour and day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. This is the primary anchor of the prophecy. In biblical eschatology, these are not benevolent messengers, but a high-ranking demonic host, restrained by divine decree near the cradle of humanity's original post-flood rebellion at Babel. The scripture uses precise, legalistic terminology. They are bound, and they must be released. When this supernatural seal is finally broken, the consequence is an unmatched global catastrophe, resulting in the death of 1/3 of the human population. For generations, scholars dismissed this geography as purely metaphorical. But as the physical river recedes to historic lows, exposing dry, cavernous vaults beneath the ancient riverbed, that dismissal is starting to crack. Could the anomalous metallic groans and thermal signatures recorded along these exact coordinates be the physical echo of ancient spiritual restraints fracturing? Are the modern reports from the river and the words of the ancient prophet describing the exact same category of event? If these bound forces are indeed preparing for release, the spiritual breach may have already begun at another ancient summit. This northern summit, rising over 9,000 feet above the Levant, serves as the geographical starting point for a parallel rebellion. According to the apocryphal Book of Enoch, an ancient text preserved in the Ethiopic tradition and mirrored in fragments among the Dead Sea Scrolls, this peak was the gateway for a celestial descent. The text records that 200 high-ranking angelic beings, known as the Watchers, chose this exact mountain as their point of entry into the physical world. In the Semitic root language, the word Hermon translates to devoted or forbidden, derived from cherem, meaning a ban or a sacred oath. The Book of Enoch states that the Watchers did not arrive merely as visitors, but as mutineers. Knowing their descent violated divine order, they gathered on the summit to bind themselves to a mutual curse, swearing a collective oath to execute their plan and share its consequences together. This turns Mount Hermon into a primary anchor for the supernatural. In ancient Near Eastern cosmology, high-altitude summits were treated as threshold sites, physical locations where the boundary between the heavens and the earth grew thin. Why did this specific mountain carry the weight of this ancient rebellion? If the Book of Enoch is not a simple fable, but a historical record of an interdimensional breach, does the physical peak still hold the residue of that ancient pact? As modern geopolitical conflicts once again center on this heavily fortified summit, a chilling pattern begins to surface, revealing the dark origins of the secrets they left behind. Today, this ancient summit is no longer a silent monument of apocryphal myth, but one of the most heavily fortified, contested military zones on Earth. Straddling the volatile border zone between Israel, Syria, and Lebanon, the 2,814-meter peak of Mount Hermon serves as a critical strategic high ground, dictating the defense architecture of the entire Levant. Following the sudden collapse of the Syrian regime in late 2024, Israeli forces seized control of the mountain, launching strikes that neutralized approximately 500 military targets across the terrain. By early 2026, a diplomatic framework involving the United States, Israel, and Lebanon attempted to coordinate security, yet the peak remains a flashpoint. The mountain now bristles with hundreds of advanced radar systems designed to detect fiber optic drones and low-altitude threats, transforming a legendary site into an active war stage. But why does this specific terrain remain the persistent center of gravity for regional conflict? Geopoliticians explain it through the simple logic of high ground. From these heights, military sensors can monitor Damascus, Beirut, and northern Israel. Yet, when examined alongside ancient texts, an unsettling geographic question arises. Is the battle for this mountain merely a matter of secular military dominance? Or is this modern struggle a physical reflection of a recurring spiritual reality? If Mount Hermon once operated as a threshold where the boundary between the heavens and the earth grew thin, could modern militaries be guarding a gateway they do not fully comprehend? As global powers fortify this physical summit, a parallel disclosure is quietly taking shape within the halls of government, revealing that the skies above us may hold secrets far more ancient than modern technology. On May 8, 2026, the United States government launched an online portal known as the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters, or PURSUE. This platform initiated a systematic declassification of military records, starting with a first tranche of 160 videos and images, including raw infrared footage. A second wave of files was uploaded on May 22, 2026, followed by a third on June 12, 2026, placing thousands of pages of military radar logs and pilot encounters directly into the public domain. While this 2026 wave marks a rapid institutional acceleration, the legal foundation for this disclosure was laid years prior. On July 26, 2023, the House Oversight Subcommittee on National Security convened a public hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomena. Sworn testimony from retired military pilots Ryan Graves and David Fravor alongside former intelligence officer David Grush, entered the official congressional record. Fravor detailed objects demonstrating flight capabilities that bypass traditional aerodynamics. But the most striking exchange occurred when Grush was questioned about recovered craft. Under oath, Grush testified that the government has maintained a multi-decade crash retrieval program. When asked if human or non-human pilots were recovered from these devices, Grush stated that biologics came with some of these recoveries, clarifying that they were non-human based on interviews with active, high-level officials. This was reinforced on November 13, 2024, when former Defense Intelligence official Luis Elizondo submitted written congressional testimony stating that these advanced technologies are actively monitoring sensitive global military installations. Crucially, the existence of these official files does not inherently validate an ancient theological theory. The documents themselves do not reference the Euphrates, Mount Hermon, or the Book of Enoch. Instead, they catalog unexplained physical events. Yet the sudden alignment of military disclosure with ancient warnings raises a chilling question. If the global security apparatus is preparing the public for an intelligence that is not of this earth, are they unwittingly opening the gates to a deception that was bound long before modern history began? To understand this potential deception, scholars look to an ancient warning written long before the advent of modern military radar. In his second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 11, verse 14, the Apostle Paul wrote a brief but devastating warning regarding the nature of spiritual deception. And no wonder, for even Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. This theological lens suggests that the greatest threat to human perception is a force that presents itself as benevolent, luminous, and trustworthy, masking its true purpose. Modern disclosure efforts may be preparing the public for exactly this type of encounter. By framing these anomalies through dry bureaucratic terms like unidentified anomalous phenomena and non-human biologics, the official narrative does something highly specific. It normalizes the existence of these intelligences without ever explaining what they are. The terminology shifts the conversation away from spiritual discernment and into the realm of science and national security. The public is taught to ask how these craft fly, rather than who is piloting them and what they want. If these entities are the same ancient rebellion recorded on Mount Hermon and bound at the Euphrates, then presenting them as highly evolved biological travelers from another galaxy is the perfect disguise. It bypasses traditional spiritual defenses. By stripping away the supernatural, secular disclosure prepares a modern world to welcome these forces as cosmic saviors or advanced teachers. Could this long-awaited transparency from global governments be something far more calculated than mere political honesty? If the public is being conditioned to accept these intelligences without question, the next logical step is to wonder, are we being prepared to believe a global lie? And if this deception is already active, does its blueprint exist in the very technology we are building to replace human consciousness? Ancient Semitic texts from the Second Temple period describe a profound disruption in early human lineage. In both the Genesis tradition and the apocryphal Book of Enoch, this disruption is not framed as a simple moral failing, but as an unauthorized biological intervention. According to these accounts, a class of celestial beings designated as Watchers crossed an established cosmic boundary, entering the physical world to mingle their genetic lineage with human women. The resulting offspring, known in the Hebrew tradition as the Nephilim, represent the primary motif of this union. Ancient translations describe them as giants or fallen ones, but the core of the ancient claim lies in systematic corruption rather than physical spectacle. The texts paint a picture of a planet where humanity's genetic integrity was compromised, transforming the population into an affected biological field. The Book of Enoch states that this interaction introduced prohibited arts alongside a structural alteration of physical flesh. To evaluate this claim objectively, we must distinguish ancient theological tradition from modern laboratory proof. These texts do not offer empirical DNA sequencing or peer-reviewed forensic analysis. Instead, they provide a conceptual framework, a historical memory of an external, highly organized manipulation of human biology. If these ancient records are describing a literal physical event rather than a poetic myth, they suggest that the human genome has been targeted once before. If the ancient pattern was defined by a quiet, physical alteration of our species, could that same biological agenda be happening again beneath the cover of modern phenomena? And if so, what does this ancient model tell us about the true purpose of the strange encounters reported in our skies today? In September 1961, Betty and Barney Hill experienced a period of missing time along a dark highway in New Hampshire, later recalling invasive medical examinations that became the first widely publicized abduction report in American history. 14 years later, in 1975, logger Travis Walton vanished for 5 days in Arizona, returning with accounts of physical examination by non-human entities. These cases established a modern template of encounters dominated by clinical observation, physical sampling, and anatomical investigation. Over the subsequent decades, thousands of reports have mirrored these benchmark events, increasingly describing themes of genetic harvesting, egg and sperm extraction, and systematic reproductive monitoring. Yet, a severe division remains between subjective human memory and objective physical evidence. Mainstream biological and forensic experts point to an absolute lack of peer-reviewed scientific confirmation. Forensic analysts note that true corroboration requires verifiable physical data, unaltered foreign implants, anomalous DNA sequencing, or peer-reviewed medical reports of reproductive anomalies, none of which have ever survived rigorous laboratory scrutiny. The witnesses in these cases are often vulnerable human narrators carrying lasting trauma, and their stories, while deeply felt, operate as testimonies rather than empirical proof. Public statements from qualified medical personnel consistently emphasize that memory under hypnosis is highly malleable, cautioning against treating these dramatic recollections as objective forensic reality. Even without physical proof, the thematic consistency of these modern reports remains highly disturbing. Why do thousands of unrelated witnesses across decades describe the exact same biological interest? If these encounters are a continuation of an ancient spiritual agenda rather than extraterrestrial visits, the persistent focus on human reproduction takes on a far darker meaning. Is the modern phenomenon executing a quiet, biological program designed to alter the very fabric of human lineage? If this covert genetic campaign is occurring without public awareness, does the parallel threat lie in the physical tools we are actively building with our own hands? The Book of Enoch records that the descent of the 200 watchers on Mount Hermon was marked by the transfer of specialized, unauthorized knowledge. The ancient text outlines a systematic curriculum of arts deemed dangerous for humanity: the forging of swords and bronze weaponry, the practice of sorcery and enchantments, the reading of the stars for divination, and the creation of deceptive cosmetics. In the ancient world, these breakthroughs appeared to bypass natural human development, arriving suddenly as if from an external source. In modern laboratories, a parallel pattern is unfolding. The rapid, exponential leaps occurring in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology are transforming human society at a rate that challenges the traditional model of gradual scientific progress. This raises a fundamental question: are these breakthroughs entirely the product of human ingenuity, or are we witnessing the modern manifestation of introduced knowledge? Some of the most prominent figures in technology have described these advancements using vocabulary that mirrors the occult. In October 2014, during a public address at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Elon Musk used a striking metaphor, stating that with artificial intelligence, humanity is summoning the demon, and suggesting that the technologists who believe they can control it are making a dangerous miscalculation. This warning is not an isolated piece of rhetoric. Historians of science note that early computing pioneers and modern algorithm researchers alike have occasionally described their work through the lens of natural magic. The process of training a large language model involves mapping billions of words into high-dimensional vectors, creating mathematical spaces where machines generate associations and predictions that human programmers cannot track in real time. This transition from human instruction to machine autonomy is accelerated by quantum-enhanced reinforcement learning. Hardware developers like IonQ are exploring hybrid architectures that integrate deep neural networks with quantum circuits. These quantum systems process information in states of superposition, calculating complex probabilities at speeds that defy classical physical limits. In these systems, the machine does not follow a predefined set of rules. Instead, it refines its own algorithms through iterative reward models, producing solutions that its creators can observe but cannot fully explain. The result is a black box. The machine functions as a modern language bearer, producing predictive insights and cognitive operations through hidden layers that remain entirely opaque to human observation. To some historians and ethicists, this process of training a neural network until it exhibits emergent capabilities looks less like traditional engineering and more like a modern form of invocation. The ancient watchers introduced technologies that altered the physical and cognitive trajectory of early human civilization. Modern computer networks are achieving the exact same result. They are reshaping how we process information, how we alter biological life through gene editing, and how we define truth. This is not a slow evolution, but a sudden leap into systems that operate beyond human control. Are we looking at the natural peak of human achievement, or are modern technologists unwittingly reconstructing the very gateway that was opened on Mount Hermon millennia ago? If these technologies represent a modern form of forbidden knowledge, their ultimate purpose may go far beyond mere scientific innovation. They are constructing the precise digital framework required to monitor, track, and ultimately control every aspect of human life. The machinery of a completely controlled financial system is not a futuristic concept. It is operational today. By mid-2026, central banks and private corporations have quietly merged identity, payment, and access into a singular functioning infrastructure. The transition from physical cash to programmable currency has passed its trial phase. On January 1st, 2026, China upgraded its digital yuan, or ECNY, shifting the token from a basic cash equivalent to an interest-bearing deposit instrument. By June 16th, 2026, this sovereign network linked 26 international financial institutions through a unified cross-border payment platform. To use it, real name verification is mandatory, linking every transaction directly to a state-controlled identity token. Simultaneously, physical access points are migrating to the human body, turning biology into a transactional key. Palm scan terminals are expanding rapidly, projected to represent over 46% of the biometric terminal market in 2026. Amazon One's biometric palm scan system has expanded nationwide across stores and stadiums, mapping the subdermal vein patterns of millions of users. In China, Ant Group's Alipay deployed advanced facial recognition verification across key commercial sectors, making biometric scans a requirement for basic merchant transactions. These are not optional conveniences, they are the new parameters of market participation. This financial plumbing is rapidly merging with digital identity mandates that condition a citizen's access to the market. On July 1st, 2026, The Tunisian government enforced a strict deadline requiring all investors to obtain a mobile ID credential. Without this digital identity, the national filing system completely rejects their filings. In the United Kingdom, a consortium of major banks, including Barclays, HSBC, Lloyds, NatWest, Nationwide, and Santander, began piloting a digital ID network that directly links a customer's verified banking app identity to their eligibility to make purchases. Meanwhile, security providers like Entrust are replacing traditional passwords with face and fingerprint checks tied to adaptive, risk-based access controls. When we read the ancient words of Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 and 17, the text warns of a system where no one can buy or sell without a specific mark or identity. Historically, critics dismiss this as a technological impossibility. Today, that skepticism is obsolete. When programmable central bank digital currencies, biometric palm scans, and conditional digital IDs are joined, exclusion becomes a simple matter of database permissions. If your digital ID is inactive, your biometric scan fails, or your digital wallet is restricted, you are instantly locked out of the marketplace. The system does not require physical enforcement. The architecture itself does the gating. Is the machinery already complete enough to enforce global exclusion? If physical exclusion is the cage, what is the force that makes humanity step inside willingly? The transition from digital control to total spiritual submission does not rely on brute force, but on the systematic rewiring of human perception. In the second letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 2, verse 11, the Apostle Paul warns of a final, overwhelming psychological climate. God sends them a strong delusion so that they may believe what is false. This is not a slow drift, but an active, authoritative campaign designed to alter mass belief. When official military channels, scientific authorities, and global institutions unite to validate an anomalous, non-human presence, they establish a highly trusted framework for global persuasion. The public is conditioned to accept a new reality because the messaging comes from the highest levels of power. Prophecy-oriented scholars warn that this systematic conditioning is leading toward a single, massive public manifestation, an event so spectacular it completely shatters modern scientific and religious paradigms. Under the weight of this collective shock, traditional human defenses collapse. Is this coordinated transparency from our leaders actually preparing the global mind to embrace a lie of cosmic proportions? If the stage is set for a deceptive presentation that looks like salvation, what happens when the sky itself begins to speak? The systematic rollout of official UAP files functions as a psychological delivery system by replacing ancient spiritual terminology with sterile bureaucratic designations like unidentified anomalous phenomena or non-human biologics. Global institutions slowly disarm traditional human defenses. This repeated use of sanitized language actively conditions the public, normalizing the presence of these entities and stripping away their supernatural warning signs. If these beings are indeed the same ancient rebellion that descended on Mount Hermon, their modern presentation as biological travelers from other galaxies provides the perfect cover. The official narrative is designed to frame them as cosmic saviors, highly evolved teachers offering technological solutions to humanity's most desperate planetary crises, from disease to total economic collapse. Under this framing, rejecting their arrival would be branded as irrational hostility or religious extremism. Discernment is replaced by a mandated social duty to cooperate with our new galactic partners. Humanity is being positioned as the intended audience for a carefully managed, interdimensional deception. We are rapidly approaching a historic threshold where the choice between spiritual discernment and total embrace will decide our fate. When the veil finally breaks and the skies deliver what has been promised, will we recognize the ancient forces behind the modern mask, or will we willingly welcome them as our creators?
We stand at the precipice of a redesigned reality,
As we construct autonomous minds and look to the skies for answers, we are not entering a new technological frontier, but the final stage of an ancient warning. The boundary between innovation and spiritual deception has collapsed. What humanity is building next may not be a tool, but an altar. Are we blind to the deception unfolding in plain sight? Join the conversation in the comments below.